You're watching KCCI Channel 8, Des Moines. Iowa's news leader and home of live Super Doppler. This is KCCI News Channel 8 at 10.
There's nothing worse. Christmas Day, a pregnant woman, brutally murdered, a baby. There's no worse case.
The brutal crime brought on a tidal wave of national coverage. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on this Friday. The trial dragged on for almost 6 months. It was messy and oftentimes confusing.
And today, a California jury found Scott Peterson guilty of murdering his pregnant wife and their unborn son. The jury found Peterson guilty of first-degree murder in the death of his wife, Lacey, guilty of second-degree murder for the death of their unborn child, Connor.
It has been a chaotic week in the courtroom, and after the dismissal of 2 jurors, the final jury reached a decision in only about 5 hours. Spectators outside the courthouse were cheering when they heard word of the verdict. Tonight's top story, reaction from those who were closely watching this trial. Emily Givens is here with some mixed reaction. Emily?
That's right, Kevin. At least one local criminal defense attorney thought Scott Peterson would get off, while an advocate for victims is very glad he didn't.
Find the defendant, Scott Lee Peterson, guilty of the crime of murder.
Most everybody that followed the trial assumed he was guilty.
But Des Moines defense attorney Maggie Moss was not one of them. She thought there wasn't enough physical evidence to convict Scott Peterson.
It was a long trial, and there was a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Circumstantial evidence is apparently what it came down to. Moss says the prosecution did a perfect job making Peterson look like a monster.
He was such an individual that people wanted to believe that he was a liar, that he did cheat.
The public is not aware how common these situations are.
Laura Rohn knows Scott Peterson's story all too well. She says domestic violence homicides are the most common here in Iowa, averaging 1 a month. It's the only type of homicide that hasn't gone down in the past 10 years. But she says for some reason the media chose the Peterson case to watch closely.
There are many advocates and experts that have watched this case very closely as it's developed over the last 2 years.
As the Peterson case now enters the penalty phase, it's Rohn's hope that more attention go back to other victims and their struggles, because there are thousands more out there. And as you heard, Scott Peterson was found guilty of murdering his unborn son. But here in Iowa, that's not called murder. It's called feticide and carries a shorter time in prison if you're convicted. Now, if you are a victim or know someone who is of domestic violence, there's an Iowa hotline you can call. That number is 1-800-942-0333. Kevin?
All right, Emily Givens with our top story tonight. Thank you very much. A little bit more now. Scott Peterson will remain in jail as he awaits his sentence. The judge has set the penalty phase for the trial to begin on November 22nd. The jury could sentence Peterson to life in prison or the death penalty. All the key players in this case on both sides have been forbidden from talking to the media as part of a gag order, that is, until Peterson is sentenced. Locally, new developments tonight in a Clive apartment fire investigation.
News Channel 8's Chris Negus live at the Crestland Apartments with the exclusive information. What have you found, Chris?
Well, Jeanette, since fire destroyed this 3-story apartment building on Tuesday, fire investigators have been searching for a cause, and their focus has been on this lower-level apartment that you see boarded up behind me. Now, tonight, the fire marshal, along with the Des Moines Bomb Squad, removed several different chemicals from that apartment and brought them to a Clive Park next to the Aquatic Center. That explosion was brought to you by the Des Moines Bomb Squad. Those charred canisters that you see there on the bottom of the screen, those contain the chemicals that we are talking about. Now, erring on the side of caution, they decided to blow up those canisters. I'm told that they included several chemicals, including black powder. They also included chemicals that would be found in fireworks and rocket components. It has been reported that the tenant in that apartment was a model rocket enthusiast. Now, all of the chemicals are legal to have, but because of the fire and the extreme heat, they wanted to be safe and destroy those chemicals to get rid of a potential hazard. So they did that by blowing them up.
Wrong conditions, such as a fire, or get mixed together accidentally, they could have violent reactions and can have incredible consequences.
As far as an official cause for this fire, it has been determined. However, they are not going to release it until Monday. But again, investigators do believe it started in that lower level apartment behind me, and we should have more information on this as the story continues to develop on Monday.
All right, thanks for the update, Chris. Also new tonight, one teenager is in the hospital, and police say his friend put him there. It all centers around a crash that happened around 7 this evening. Des Moines officers say the driver of this car was speeding eastbound on Euclid, hit a pole, and flipped. The backseat passenger was ejected and went to the hospital in critical condition. His friend, the driver, took off running. Police eventually did catch up with him.
The mother of a National Guard soldier who was killed behind the wheel of a truck crash in August says her son was taking several pain medications for a pulled tooth. It was back in August that Army Specialist Dustin Colby and Staff Sergeant Bruce Paulema were both killed. Specialist Colby was behind the wheel of an Army semi-truck. He had just pulled out of Camp Dodge in Johnston, where the truck gently veered off the road. It rolled into a ditch and rolled over, crushing the soldiers. Johnston police now say a contributing factor was prescription medication. The soldier had taken 3 separate pain pills prescribed by 2 different dentists and 1 doctor. His mother says it was because of a constant pain from a pulled tooth.
And I don't want people thinking that my son was just on drugs and crashed. I want them to know that he was on prescription drugs that were provided because of a wisdom tooth.
Dustin went to several providers, and those providers prescribed him these medications. It is not clear from our investigation whether the providers knew about each other's prescription, and it's certainly possible that Dustin was unaware of the potential additive effects.
There's more to come in this case. Next week, the Iowa National Guard and the U.S. Army plan to make their investigation into the crash public and the steps that they will be taking to prevent a repeat occurrence.
A follow-up tonight to our special reports on something called the Nigerian counterfeit check scam. The warnings have paid off for at least a couple of viewers who were either selling a house or renting rooms with ads on the internet. They received cashier's checks for thousands of dollars, then were asked to cash them and send money back to the buyers.
I would have no reason to believe that a cashier's check was not genuine, and I'm sure I would have went right down and tried to deposit it.
The idea is they play on the trust, and then they don't give you time to think about it.
Those 2 guys saw the red flags before falling victim to the scam. If you cash the fake checks, unfortunately, most banks will hold you liable. Governor Vilsack may have some competition for the Democratic Party's top post. Former presidential hopeful Howard Dean is also showing interest. Vilsack has told other Democrats he is interested in being chairman of the DNC, and he says he will decide whether he'll pursue it next week after he gets back from Europe.
Well, I don't think it's going to be like last weekend, but at least we're not going to have to deal with the rain. Doesn't look like in the forecast. John McLaughlin, things kind of looking pretty good, relatively speaking.
I don't know, Kevin. I'm a little worried about this weekend. We could see a day of destruction.
No,
wait.
Stop it.
That's coming up later in the news. Let's talk about temperatures out there. Cool tonight, 30 degrees already up at Wall Lakeview, Auburn. If you're down around Lake Panorama, 35, Pella 31, and down in Lamoni currently at 36. We are going to have a chilly night ahead. Very dry air, clear skies over the state. Sunshine for your Saturday. Temperatures will top out near 50 degrees. A few more clouds Sunday. But again, we'll have a pretty nice weekend coming up.
All right. Thank you very much, John.
Still ahead on News Channel 8 at 10. Just weeks after moving to Iowa, one of 2 orangutans at the Great Ape Trust of Iowa has died. Coming up, what may have caused the premature death.
Also, a warning for drivers. We'll take you to one of the most dangerous intersections in the metro and see why some say it's only going to get worse.
And here's what John was talking about. 3 massive weather systems all set to collide over the Midwest. Could it happen here? Or is this just a movie twisting some fun? We'll have John with some answers when News Channel 8 at 10 continues.
You're watching KCCI News Channel 8 at 10. Iowa's news leader. With Kevin Cooney, Jeanette Trumpeter, Heidi Soliday Sports, and meteorologist John McLaughlin with exclusive live Super Doppler weather. This is KCCI News Channel 8.
And welcome back. One of 2 orangutans recently brought to Iowa has died.
Inda, the 24-year-old female, recently became inactive and lost her appetite. Doctors at the Great Ape Trust of Iowa and at Iowa State University discovered a bowel syndrome that had become incurable. The veterinarians euthanized her last night. It's a big loss for the newly opened ape learning facility.
What gets us through that is remembering Inda's legacy, and she had a legacy. She was a terrific ambassador for great ape science and great ape conservation.
The Ape Trust will attempt to find a replacement for Inda, but there is no decision on when that may happen. It is one of the more dangerous intersections in the metro area, and emergency workers say they expect it to get worse. At 150th, 56th and Hickman, the speed limit is 55 miles an hour. What used to be a country road is now seeing an increase in traffic as Waukee and Adel continue to grow. And as drivers fly through yellow lights, accidents are on the rise. More than a dozen have happened along with the recent development.
Well, a construction warning out for I-235 over the weekend. Traffic on the interstate is going to be shut down completely from Saturday night to Sunday morning. The location, the 63rd Street interchange. There'll be some bridge repairs going on there. An impressive thriller that will leave you blown away. Coming up, a sneak peek at the new miniseries, Day of Destruction.
Yeah, we'll get to meet Tornado Tommy there. Super Doppler forecast, nothing like that here. It's next.
This live Super Doppler 8 network forecast is sponsored by American Family Insurance. KCCI Storm Team 8 is your only team of 4 certified meteorologists keeping you safe under an umbrella of protection.
Beautiful weekend coming up in Iowa. We thought we'd show you what's going on in other parts of the country. This is from Massachusetts, where they have a little bit of snow today, just enough to kind of put folks in the winter mood up there. And tell you what, let's be thankful it's not happening here quite yet. 40 degrees, partly cloudy, a calm wind, 19 the dew point temperature. And I think we probably cooled off a little more than that. The pressure rising 3050. Here's a little more video from Massachusetts. Now let's check some of the live information from our SchoolNet site. Take you up to the north of the metro to Nevada, where the temperature right now is 31 degrees. Emerson Elementary down in Indianola, 34. And as you get down to southern Iowa, just a bit better temperatures right now in the upper 30s, 39 at Centralville Central Elementary School. Let's move on, take a look at some of the temperatures across the upper Midwest, because cold pocket of air right over Minnesota, down into Iowa. Temperatures tonight heading into the 20s, maybe even some teens across parts of the north. We had a few little clouds drift through from the north, now a band of clouds kind of approaching from the south, but for the most part they're running into that dry air and falling apart and really not amounting to too much. So quite a bit of cooling tonight with the clear sky. Now tomorrow, high pressure area slides east. That'll allow more of a southeasterly wind during the day tomorrow. And southerly wind, you think warmer temperatures, but in this case, if it's southeast, we really don't get much warming on southeasterly wind, so maybe 3 or 4 degrees warmer tomorrow than what you experienced this afternoon. Tonight, about 23 degrees here in the metro. Again, as you move north of town, expect temperatures to be falling into the teens, so pretty hard to freeze tonight. During the day tomorrow, 49 for an afternoon high. If you're down around Osceola, the Creston area, near 50 degrees, winds across the state east and then eventually southeast at around 5 to 10 miles an hour. Over the next couple of days, not a lot of temperature change. We'll remain upper 40s to around 50 degrees. Toward midweek, just ever so slightly warmer into the 51 to 53 degree range on Tuesday and Wednesday. And a chance for a few showers moving in there on Tuesday. So that's a ways off. Concentrate on the weekend. And for our SchoolNet friends at Ankeny, the school up there, the Christian Academy, holding a craft fair tomorrow at 9 to raise some money.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Here now, our nightly look at what's coming up in tomorrow's Des Moines Register. You can make the most of your sunroom with ideas on how to decorate it for year-round use.
And lighten up with an interview with the king of one-liners, comedian Stephen Wright.
Plus, keep your dog